Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be on this panel with people who are old friends, and in one case, I hope, with Peter, a new friend. So let's cut to the chase. If you vote for legalizing marijuana, I'll give everybody a brownie, okay? Thank you.
That's undue influence. I object.
I have to tell you that when I saw the topic, I was a little confused because, first of all, we use the term illicit drugs, which is this wide, ranging from, if you want, marijuana on one end to God knows what they're cooking up and making on the other end. So I have difficulty with that. And the second thing I have difficulty with is decriminalization. Decriminalization it's been compared to kissing your sister, okay? It's fun, it's nice, but, you know, it's kissing your sister. Whereas legalization moves into a whole different area of looking at how we deal with drugs, how we become responsible for them, and what the issues are. Generally speaking, there is not a lot of support for legalization of so-called hard drugs, with a caveat on that. And hard drugs, generally speaking, would be cocaine, heroin, meth, and I was quite surprised they're now throwing ecstasy in there. So, I mean, hard drugs are basically anything that isn't plant material, near as I can tell, except for cocaine. I will be referring, in my case, specifically to marijuana, because that seems to be the issue of the day in Canada, at least in the drug era. I have really difficulty thinking that, you know, legalization of marijuana is up in the top 5 topics that I'm most concerned about right now. But in saying that, it is out in the open. The leader of my party, Justin Trudeau, has accepted the wishes of the Liberal Party, and so it is one of our platform. When I say referring just to marijuana, the caveat that I put to this is that I believe that there's a place for other drugs, cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, LSD, methamphetamines, for treatment purposes under medical conditions, specifically for the treatment of addictions. I believe there is a place for that. So I don't think that it should be black and white on this. I think that we should be looking at this, and certainly we've had evidence from the Naomi trials of where that goes. So I say, forget decriminalization. Let's just go straight to legalization. Because, again, decriminalization is a form of government schizophrenia. To the user, to the kid on the street, to the underage person, it says this is no big deal. It's a ticket. It's like speeding. It's like, well, it's way more serious than speeding. It's way more serious than those things that we normally give tickets to. And I know there's been the flavor of, gee, let's give tickets from the Canadian police officers, well, actually from the chief of police. And that's all well and good, but the only reason they're doing this is because it's incredibly time-consuming to get involved in a drug charge. Whereas if I can just hand out the ticket, boom, it's done with, no muss, no fuss. The difficulty with that also is that it says to the person who's selling it or the person who's growing it, in most cases, at least in my province in British Columbia, some form of organized, or as I call it, disorganized crime, if you've ever seen some of these whack jobs that are in the so-called gangs in our area, organization is not something that they're really good at. So to the dealer, it's a green light to sell. In fact, it's like the government giving you permission to go ahead on it with decriminalization. If it's legal to possess and not to supply, then organized crime will continue to meet the market demand. And I don't have to tell anybody here that's been reading the paper or watching the news. The demand is massive. The demand is huge. Legalization, on the other hand, fights against organized crime. Because if it is legalized and you're growing it and I catch you, I'm going to send you someplace where you're going to get sunshine in a tin can. It will be a serious, serious offense. And so make no question about it, there will be still an area where the law comes into it, but it will be for breaking the rules and the laws regarding growing marijuana. This, of course, right now, as we know, fills the bank accounts of organized crime. It allows uncontrolled access to our children. We have no idea what they're getting. We have no idea what it was grown with. We have no idea what was added to it. We have no idea of the levels of THC. We know nothing about it. Zero. Now, who in their right mind would let their children ingest something where you have no idea of the foregoing? There's no product safety. There's no labeling for the consumers. It's just a crapshoot on what you can get and what's going to be, what the product is made up of. Thousands and thousands of Canadians have criminal records because of possession of a joint. I know one person who got caught with a roach and has been body searched at least 8 times. She's well over 50. The roach was when she was in her 30s, and there is absolutely nothing she can do about it. Nothing. That's the kind of actions that take place when you criminalize something like this. It's so far-reaching. In the States, it's even worse, and I'm sure that my partner in crime here will get into it, but I mean, you can't get government benefits, you can't get into universities, you can't get loans. This is the kind of, where this can all lead to. Needless to say, it's a significant burden on governments to enforce this law. It's estimated that drug enforcement, and of course that's not just marijuana, in the United States was over $1 trillion in total for the last, I don't have the number of years, but it's been a significant period of time, but it's $1 trillion. Now we look at here in Canada, and I think statistically, and this is for the epidemiologists in the crowd, it's an interesting picture. In 1970, 41% supported giving fines and 45% opposed it. This was decriminalization. In 1977, 19% supported full legalization, 19%, and 77% opposed it. By the mid-2000s, it was up to 45%, and in 2010, 57% support legalization. It's higher than that now, although I think it pretty much stays in the 60% range. In some provinces like British Columbia, of course, where we have a little bit of a different attitude, it's probably sitting at 75 to 80%. We should be using evidence-based policy instead of political ideology. Drugs have always been used in terms of war and battlefields and survivors and victims and all of the rest of it. Marijuana is simply a plant that has been around since forever, has been used forever, and at some point in time in history, namely the early 1900s, laws were passed, mainly based on racial evidence as to who was using marijuana. And these laws were brought into place, and we're still enforcing them. I think that marijuana should be legalized, we should tax the living hell out of it, and the money should go to health care. Not general revenue. Not general revenue, and I stress that. It should be going to health care, and a fixed amount of that money should be going to addiction services, be it eating disorders to alcohol addiction, you name it. To me, this is a critical part of the argument, because to me, addiction is a medical problem. It's not something that you want. It's not something that you choose. It's part of a medical disease, and we should be treating that. And what better way to do that than from this? It's been estimated that legalizing marijuana in British Columbia may generate $2.5 billion in government tax and licensing revenues over 5 years. I'm sorry, that was legalizing marijuana in Canada. I don't agree with that. I think that figure's in British, I think it's on the low side. In British Columbia, the estimate that we have is $7 billion. And that's everything. That's packaging, electrical, the whole 9 yards, everything involved with the sale of marijuana. Thousands of Canadians will find direct and indirect employment. 1 in 3 in the Kootenays in British Columbia are involved in the marijuana trade. 1 in 3. In some way, shape, or form. Now, I know everybody figures, oh, gee, we'll get a bad reputation. I will be, called a bootlegger. I don't think the Bronfman family is having any difficulty with that label. And that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at moving forward from when we had alcohol prohibition and bootleggers to a time where we need to grow up and we need to take this issue into our hands. It affects agriculture, technology, energy supply, pharmaceuticals, transportation, distribution, packaging, manufacturing. It's an industry. Anything you can imagine an industry to do, this is what we're looking at here. So how do we stop people in the black market from participating in the legalized market? Well, first of all, you start with price. You make sure that you price this right, that you don't make it so expensive that somebody else is going to jump in there. When you legalize it, you also make it legal for everybody to have their own. So you can grow 6 plants in your backyard, or you can have them in your window or whatever. This is no different than making homemade wine. We've all gone through it. Remember, we had no money, but we decided that drinking wine was like really cool, so we made our homemade wine. Anybody want to go back to that? That's sort of what it's like. Eventually, I smoke, I know, but I don't grow tobacco. I don't go out and grow tobacco. Same reason I don't make my homemade wine anymore. It tastes bad. So, secondly is the packaging that we would be doing on it. On our packaging, we should say origin, what the strain is, the THC and the other cannabinoids, everything that's in that. You should be able to, I've only got 1:32 up here. Okay, another 1.5 minutes. You have packaging just like you have on anything else that we buy in Canada. And that packaging has to tell you the same things that we have on anything else, where it's from, how it's made, what its ingredients are. Zero tolerance on import and export, period. We do not export, we do not import. This is a homegrown industry. And we are better than anybody in the world when it comes to that. We increase criminal penalties for export, unregulated suppliers, and trafficking to minors. You get caught selling to a kid, you're going to join the guy getting the sunshine in the tin can. It's serious. This is a serious, serious business. And I believe everybody in this panel, in my perfect little world, there would be no marijuana, there would be no tobacco, there would be no alcohol. Life would be a really boring place to be. But that's the perfect world. We don't have that. But we have the constant, we have to protect our children. I believe that legalization, when it's all said and done, is about education. It's about educating everybody on what marijuana is, what it does, what its problems are, the whole gambit. And believe me, there is nobody who's more knowledgeable of that than our kids. And we can't lie to them anymore. And we can't tell them that you're going to grow a horn in your forehead if you smoke marijuana. This is the right thing to do. Let's not give people these criminal records that they don't deserve. Let's stop letting these gangs make money, stop them from shooting innocent people, and recognize that this is a chance to rewrite how we do business within the healthcare system. Thank you.